We had some other questions in the community that I think are good to address as well. So this question said that I'm a BCBA and I've been doing FBAs for children with autism and intellectual disability as part of my responsibilities. Since my client's challenging behavior is scratching his face to the point of bleeding and it seems automatically reinforced, would you recommend an FA as part of his FBA? So, functional analysis, like manipulating the conditions, as part of his FBA. But since we adhere to the do no harm ethical guidelines, the automatic condition will evoke and reinforce the scratching. So, wouldn't this be in and of itself harmful and against the ethical guidelines? So this is a really great question. I think really important for all of us to discuss and address. And the first thing to think about is you're assuming that it's automatically reinforced. We need to know, really, is it? Like, it's why are you assuming that the function is automatic? And I think consider the fact that it may not be. Um, and then look at other ways to get that information before you do the FA. Like, could you take ABC data? Could you fill out a QABF or an MAS or things like that, just to get more information without the assumption that it is automatically reinforced. If you've done that and you still feel like you need to manipulate the conditions, a really important thing for us to know is that we can use precursor behaviors as the behavior that we're reinforcing. We don't have to wait until the full harmful behavior is manifested. So is it that he right before he scratches his face, does he do something else? Does he look agitated? Are there any other precursor behaviors that tell you that he's about to scratch his face, even if it's just lifting up his hand to go towards his face? And really looking at what can you reinforce as a precursor so that you're not waiting for that harmful behavior to come out on an FA.
I can tell you, sorry, I can tell you a personal story on that. And, my personal story is that I was consulting to a group home a few years ago. And we had this individual who was, gosh, like 40s or 50-year-old. And he was a big guy and he was aggressive. Like, he was aggressive. He could beat his staff up, period. And the function was unknown. They thought it might be escape, but they weren't sure. We actually really did need to do a formal FA, but we were all concerned about our safety. So, I went in and I did a Hanley open-ended assessment with the staff. And I asked, interview questions of like, what kind of conditions, does this happen under, what's the operational definition of this behavior? Is the behavior on some type of spectrum? Like, does he, before he hits and agresses, is there some kind of precursor? And they said, yeah, there was. And, we determined that, he would approach staff and look like he was about to aggress before he actually did aggress. So we found that precursor, and that's what I used for the FA. So I arranged conditions such that, instead of him beating me up because I would get beaten up, he's significantly bigger than me. I would just look for that precursor. So I set up conditions whereby I still remember this. I remember clearly, like, it was totally escape. It was totally, so I would go up to him and I would try and place as many demands as I could on him. And as soon as he started to approach me like this, I eased off. I was like, oh, go, bye, see ya. And I packed up my stuff. And he was like, oh. And then literally by the third time I did that, literally he went like this. And that was it. So we counted that behavior. We counted that as an aggression, because I didn't want to count me being punched in the nose and severely injured. And we got our FA results that way. We did, escape condition. We did an attention condition, and there was no aggression whatsoever during the attention condition. And we did, control condition, and none. And as soon as I put that demand on, he'd go like this. And it's funny, it was like years ago, and I still remember there was like this many tally marks, like a ton of tally marks, in my little box, under the escape condition, but we did it with a precursor and no one got hurt.
Wow, that's a good story. That was my third point. Also, check out Henley's stuff. His version of the FA or the FBA is a little bit, more compassionate in that he doesn't recommend the longer intervals, which is part of the classic FA, where like you have to just 10 minutes or bust, like you're just waiting it out. You can shorten them to like 1 or 2 minute intervals. He also recommends, you don't have to test every single condition. So check out his stuff on practical functional assessment. And he talks about the precursors. So I really highly recommend anyone who's doing an FA really look into Hanley stuff. Um, and the open-ended functional assessment, all that stuff that Shayna mentioned is part of his research and his teachings. So definitely check that out.
I want to just address automatically reinforced behavior for a second, Shira. So, if it's automatically reinforced behavior, or that's what, your FA is telling you, I would look further into that and just say, well, what exactly is it that's automatically reinforced? So, another practical example is I have a client right now who is taking milk and spitting it. Here, I've got water right here. It's like he puts it in his mouth and he twirls it around and then he spits it out like a water fountain out of his mouth. And, we're trying to analyze what the function of his behavior is. And it doesn't seem to be attention. There might be a little bit of that, but it doesn't seem to be attention. It's not escape. It really is automatically reinforced behavior. He'll do it when no one's in the room. And so I had all the staff, it was really funny. It was a great staff meeting. I had all the staff drinking water and twirling it around in their mouth and figuring out what the cool sensation of that was. And what we determined was that we actually think that it was like the water on his teeth and the feeling. It's summertime and it's hot, and he liked that cold sensation on his teeth. So now we're doing a replacement behavior is we're giving him freezies and popsicles. And we've only just started that, but we're hoping that that's going to decrease the behavior. But again, like we had staff doing a whole bunch of suggestions and we're like, okay, oh, maybe it's the blowing, maybe it's the bubbles, maybe he can blow bubbles. So you want to be thinking about replacement behavior for automatic reinforcement as well. And so if you're looking at, okay, so aggression as automatic reinforcement, I have my doubts on that one, but if he is, doing that because it's automatic, what feeling does he get out of it? Maybe it's something to do with his shoulders. Like, does he need a shoulder massage? Or maybe he needs that deep pressure, like push-ups or chin-ups or something. So play around with that and like really body and space, and what do you think he's trying to get out of that?
Yes.